Put in your headphones. It's about to get bassy.
This video is going to be a demo and review of this little black box, the Noble Amplifier Company's Preamp and DI thing, which has got lots of big name bass players, including Tim Lefebvre and Sean Hurley. Very, very excited about it. They've given it rave reviews, and it has the rest of us asking, is it really worth the $1,000 price tag? So that's what we're going to find out. I'm going to start with a disclaimer. I have no affiliation whatsoever with Noble Amps. Jack at Noble is an absolute hero. Very, very helpful if you have questions about the product, very responsive via email. But Jack has not asked me to do this. And this video is solely based on my experiences of using this product on gigs in London and around the UK over the last 18 months. So let's take a closer look at this black box. The first thing that I notice when I pick it up is how solidly it's built. You've got all metal chassis, really, really rugged, and I'm definitely not worried about it falling apart on a gig, which is a legitimate concern with some bits of equipment. Going around it, we have power in, power on, 1/4 inch jack output, XLR output with ground lift, 1/4 inch jack input, 6 9-volt DC power outlets. So if you're the kind of guy or girl who likes to take a bunch of pedals on the gig, you don't have to have an additional power supply, which is great. Since I bought my Noble, the company have started offering other options in terms of the power output. You can also get 12-volt supplies if your pedal requirements demand it. If you're one of those people that insists on running pedals that need 18 volts, you cannot use a voltage doubler cable and just daisy chain to them together because they are not isolated. You can, however, if you're adamant that you want to use an 18-volt pedal, you can get in touch with Jack and order an adapter to bump it up. Round here, this is what this pedal is all about. 2 real, no fooling, all analog, old school tubes designed to bring a healthy dose of warmth to your bass. And this was my reason for buying this pedal. Most of my electric bass gigs fall into the Motown and Soul category. My main gigging bass is a P bass strung with flats that haven't been changed in about 5 years. I want it to sound really old. I want it to sound like I'm gigging through an old Ampeg B15, but without the numerous worries associated with taking gear that is older than me on a gig. On the front, you've got a volume which only affects the 1/4 inch output. It does not have any effect on the DI signal, important to note. The 2-band EQ is boost only and is accompanied by a low cut switch. If it's set to the left, everything goes through, and if I flick it to the right, it pulls out a bunch of stuff below 150 Hz. Now, my experience with gigging this is that I tend to leave it on the low cut setting because in small venues it gets a bit subby if you leave it in. Also, most front of house engineers that I've worked with tend to whip the low stuff out anyway. Should be noted that this is one of the few bits of gear where I actually like, or I can actually stand to boost the treble by any amount. Usually on bits of gear I dump all the treble off because it's just hissy and brittle, but the Noble has a really musical treble EQ. So what I'm going to do is record 2 different Fender basses, a passive precision and an active jazz. First of all, going straight into an interface, an Apogee One, with no compression, no EQ, nothing at all, so you can hear how they sound normally. And then I'm going to record them again with a bunch of different settings on the Noble, so you can hear how the EQ works and if the tubes really do make a difference to the sound. First bass that I'm going to demo the Noble through is this mid-80s Japanese precision, maple neck, Aguilar 60s pickups and flat wound strings. I'm not sure what they are, they've been on here for about 5 years, so they're really, really dead. The second bass that I'm going to use for this demo is this 2005 American Deluxe jazz bass in the very attractive Candy Tangerine shade. Maple neck, pretty old round wound nickel strings, stock pickups, stock preamp. This bass has an 18 volt active circuit, so it's a good contrast to the P bass. I'm going to leave the EQ completely flat on the bass, and you're going to hear it with both pickups on full volume all the time. So having heard the sound clips, you're now in a better position to judge as to whether the Noble lives up to its claims and really does impart a nice analog vintage tubey warmth to the sound of a bass. From my perspective, I've been using this bit of gear for pretty much every gig that I've done in the last 18 months on both double bass and electric bass, and I have to say, if for some reason it broke or it got stolen or whatever, I couldn't use it, I would order another one straight away without hesitation. Okay, I really do believe it's that good. Now, I hate being the guy that gets attached to bits of gear. I hate being into gear or having to rely on specific bits of equipment. I'm a firm believer that the sound really comes from what you practice and what you listen to, and that your gear plays a really, really small part in how you sound on a gig. Having said that, every now and then bits of equipment come along that slot into my setup and really make my life easier and make gigging and recording or whatever more enjoyable, and the Noble is one of them. Now, you might make the valid point that I can't be completely objective about this because I've already spent my money on it, and if I'd forked out for it and it didn't really do anything, I'd probably still say that it was great, so I didn't look like a tit. What I can go on though is the feedback that I've got from other musicians, from sound engineers and from engineers and producers in studios whenever I've used this. And what has happened is that after pretty much every gig, someone has come up to me and said, "What's that black box? The bass sounds great. What is that thing that you're using? I haven't seen one of those before." Okay. Engineers are always really complimentary about the signal that comes out of here. They say that it's super clean compared to other DIs, and they don't really have to do too much to it in terms of EQ, that it sounds great straight off the bat, which is fantastic. So the question remains, is it worth the investment compared to other comparable DIs that are out on the market? Now, I don't have experience of other tube DIs like the Red DI, which I know a lot of people are big fans of. I do have experience of things down the slightly cheaper end of the spectrum, like the Aguilar toner hammer, the radial tone bone, and the Sansamp, various different models of the Sansamp. And I have to say that this is in a completely different league, and it blows them all out of the water, as you'd expect, because it's in a different price bracket. But I really feel that it is worth the investment if, like me, you do a lot of your gigs without an amp, you turn up with a bass and a DI, and you want to go effectively straight into the desk, but you still want to retain a decent bass tone. Maybe your band works on in-ears and you still want a nice sound, you don't want that horrible sterile sound. It's really good for warming up the sounds of basses that are quite modern sounding. I have a Nordstrand 5-string that I really struggle with because it sounds too hi-fi. In a lot of situations it sounds too bright, and this is really, really useful for warming it up and giving it a more old school tone. So really the only potential drawback to the Noble is that the company only sells direct, so you can't walk into a bass shop and see if this is something that you want to buy. You have to just take a gamble on it, and if you don't live in the US, the shipping and particularly the customs charges can be quite prohibitive and really adversely affect the price of this. So it is potentially quite a risk. If you can find people that have one of these already and you can get to go and try it, fantastic. If not, hopefully this video has been helpful in making up your mind as to whether this is a bit of kit that you might want to buy or not.